when you walk away, you just cold turkey, no message board. You didn't even log on to ARMTV. Nothing. Shoo. Did you tell your team anything?
No, I'm not that nice of a guy. Alex called me. I talked to Alex off and on, but I don't think I told anybody.
You never called your guys? You never called Chad Silvers?
Look, this is why they're never going to put me on a stamp. No, I'm telling you, I don't think I told anybody. I think it was a year later I called Chad and asked to borrow his arm wrestling table. And that's how nice they are. He agreed to he loaned me an arm wrestling table, and I don't think I talked to him for a year. It's cold-hearted. Look.
You just shut the TV
It's hard.
off.
Look, wait till you quit. Well, we'll see how cordial you are when you walk away, okay?
Wow. So it ain't easy.
I need
Okay,
to
the
back-
second question.
It's probably a lot easier if you're losing, but it's not easy. It's not easy doing it when you're not necessarily at the top, but when you're within reach of the top. You know what I'm saying? If you're bobbing along, at second string, it's probably harder to quit than if you're at the very top or at the very bottom. It's harder to think, what if? What if I would have trained differently? What if I would have pulled this guy differently? What if I would have done this? You know what I'm saying? That second guessing will eat you up. No, I'm not in good shape. Not for arm wrestling. I mean, I do. Arm wrestling doesn't require much endurance. I mean, it requires strength, resistance endurance, strength endurance, like the ability to bench press a lot or that kind of stuff, but it doesn't require any cardio. Almost no, arm wrestling is an anaerobic sport. I'm more aerobic now because I do, with the Boy Scouts, I got to do more hiking, more camping, that kind of stuff. So I do a lot more. I swam a mile right before summer camp in the rec lake. I trained it took me 2 weeks to work up to it, but I could swim a mile. I could jump out of this boat right now and swim to that shore, which is not a mile. But I mean, I'm capable of doing, which arm wrestling, once again, is not the sport to transition into swimming where you got to carry those big ass heavy arms over your head all the time. Arm wrestling builds you upside down for most other sports.
How long before you realize, okay, I'm fine, I'm done? I asked you today, is there ever a comeback in Todd Hutchings? Your answer was?
There's not. But then again, I don't see my old boys all the time. I mean, it would be different if I lived in Spartanburg and I ran into them all the time. You know what I mean? But they're an hour away, so it was easy. It was easier for me because when I stopped going to the message board and I stopped seeing everybody, it's harder to break up with your girlfriend if you and her live next door. It's a hell of a lot easier if she's 4 counties away. You don't have to go see her anymore.
So you not calling your team has nothing to do with you not liking anybody. You just
I love those guys. They carried me. They carried me as far as they could. They did. I mean, I owe basically everything to them. I mean, but that's what bound us together. I mean, it's not like we were before arm wrestling. It's not like we went duck hunting together or anything.
So you've been gone for a couple of years now. Does arm wrestling ever pop into your head?
It does a lot because I still get UPS guy ask me when I'm competing, the guys at work, the people at church. I still get asked all the time. And for the first year, I'd say, well, I'm going to wait and see when the prize money comes back, or travel costs. But I mean, hopefully people will stop just asking. But I still get asked. I bet you monthly or so. I like everybody. I even like the wobbling. Look at that. See that pole? The pole's bending, but it's not pulling the drag out, and the drag on a lot, so it could just be bouncing along on the bottom.
So do you realize that the arm wrestling world misses you?
Well, there's other exciting characters. I mean, I'm sure they did because they were nice, all right? And I met a lot of nice people, and everybody was friendly, and I miss seeing the people that I used to run into. I mean, I miss seeing Ron Bath, and I miss seeing my boys up in Greenville, and I miss seeing Kevin Bongard. All right. I look. I used to spend, my God, 10, 12, 16 to 20 hours a week just training. Just in the gym and arm wrestling practice. Probably another hour or two on top a day on the message board. either watching video, researching, talking, commenting, then traveling. I mean, it might have averaged 30-some hours a week. You know what I mean? Then, you're watching what you eat all the time, and you're constantly trying to stay within weight or moving your weight up and down artificially. I mean, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of commitment to compete in the sport, And then all of a sudden, bam, you've got 30 hours a week that you don't have anything to do. And all of a sudden, I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I still wake up at 4 o'clock every morning. And I have for the last 2 years. I wake up at 4 o'clock every morning without an alarm. But now I don't have nothing to do. You know what I'm saying? So I'm awake 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm just like, and I'm not going to work at 4 o'clock. So it's like, from 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, I'm just kind of fidgeting around in my bed,
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. Let's just put an offer on the table. What if someone called you and said, Todd Hutchings, kind of like just a fun, you don't need to come back or anything, but we want to pay you $2,000, fly you in, arm wrestle 3 out of 5, somebody. Give you 2 months to train.
There ain't too much I wouldn't do for $2,000. But it would be kind of like going to see Twisted Sister in concert at the county fair, all right? It ain't what you remember. It's retro. You know what I mean? Maybe we could see if we get Johnny Cash's old band to play or something. You know what I mean?
Todd Hutchings today couldn't get back and duplicate with a couple months of training. Have you lost that much? You told me you went to visit the guys you arm wrestled.
I arm wrestled, and I did pretty good that night. But it's practice is practice, competition's competition, and it's there's a big difference. Arm wrestling somebody who's gunning for you versus arm wrestling somebody who's just glad to see you because you're friends. Probably maybe state level, maybe a sub, maybe a B-list state level puller right now. One thing to take away, if you've been in the sport for a long, long time, it doesn't go away. Like we've all seen Arnold Schwarzenegger, he looks like compared to his days, But most of your power in arm wrestling is, your body, you build the bone structure, you build the tendons, my hand's softer, my forearms are softer, I'm smaller than I was. But the tendons and the bones, I don't think you lose that. You can build the muscle back, all right? And if you're experienced, you probably know how to train quicker. If I was training for a Supermatch as opposed to a career, all right, I wouldn't do a lot of the squatting. I wouldn't do a lot of the back work. I wouldn't do any of the core training. I wouldn't do any of that endurance stuff. You know what I mean? You'd hit the elbows, you'd hit the wrists, you'd hit the hands, and you'd call it good. Because there's only got to be 5 matches. You're not, you're arm wrestling, you're training for 5 matches out of a lifetime versus a year of arm wrestling and practice. You might be training for, 1,000 matches maybe? And then in practice, I wouldn't even, if you had a super match coming up, you wouldn't work all aspects of your game. You'd gamble it all or nothing. You'd say, if I got to arm wrestle that boy, what's he going to, you make the decision ahead of time. Well, screw it. We're going to hook him. We're going to hook him every single time. All I'm working is the hook. And if the hook don't work, I lose. If the hook works, then I'm in the game. I don't necessarily win, but we're going to hook him.
It's not impossible.
No, nothing's impossible. But I'm not personally or emotionally invested in arm wrestling like I was, And there are other people that live for it and strive for it that would be far better to make the offer.